Sir, stop right there. Don't move. Whose child is that? Officer, that's my daughter. Her name is Hadley. We're just going home.
Daddy, why is he saying that? I'm scared.
It's okay, baby. Stay close. Officer, I can show you my ID.
$2.8 million. That is the number a jury reads out loud inside a Cobb County courthouse. And the moment they do, a 9-year veteran of the Marietta Police Department stops breathing like a free man. The officer is terminated. Not suspended. Not reassigned. Terminated. The department's leadership is replaced within a year. The Bodycam footage has already been seen by 3.2 million people in 48 hours. See, and a father who went to pick up a prescription is now sitting in a courtroom with a settlement check, and a daughter who still flinches when she hears sirens. That is where this story ends. But it started on a Tuesday afternoon, in a CVS parking lot, in a Georgia storm, when a little girl dropped her teddy bear. And 2 officers decided, before they said a single word, that a black man could not possibly be the father of a white child. If you're just joining us, welcome. Take a breath. Yet this story is going to take you somewhere important. Stay with it all the way through, because what happens next changes everything. Drop your city in the comments right now. And if stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe. We cover accountability every single week. The sky over Marietta is the color of a bruise that hasn't finished forming. It is 4:17 in the afternoon. The humidity sits on everything. On windshields, on jacket shoulders, on the back of a little girl's neck as she squats near a crack in the parking lot pavement where a dandelion is growing. She laughs. Her name is Hadley. She is 7 years old. Her pink puffer jacket is zipped to her chin. In her left hand, she holds a gray teddy bear with a stitched left ear. Stitched twice because she won't stop sleeping on it. The man holding her right hand is her father. His name is Quentin Pierce. He is calm the way people are calm when they have learned, through years and years of being in rooms where the temperature can shift without warning, that calm is the only thing they can always control. He has a prescription bag. He has a dental appointment receipt. He has his daughter's hand. He is not doing anything wrong. He does not know that someone has already made a call. He does not know that 2 officers are already pulling into the lot. He does not know what the next 11 minutes are going to cost him. Thunder rolls in from the west. Low, warning, the kind of sound that makes children look up. Hadley looks up. She reaches for her father's hand with both of hers. He squeezes once. And across the parking lot, a patrol car cuts its engine. What those officers are about to do will end careers, change a department, and empty a city's bank account by $2.8 million. But the only thing Quentin Pierce knows right now is that his daughter is laughing at a dandelion, and the storm is getting closer. He has no idea what those officers are already certain of. Quentin Pierce grew up knowing what it felt like to be read before he opened his mouth. Not in a classroom the way people talk about it. In a grocery store, at a bank window, in a job interview where the interviewer's eyes went flat the moment he walked in. The kind of knowing that gets into a person's bones before they are old enough to give it a name. He gave it a name. And then he got to work anyway. He pushed through Georgia State University on overnight shifts and weekend study sessions, and a mother who taped a note to the bathroom mirror that said education is the one thing no one can take back. He came out the other side with a business degree and 0 patience for systems that assumed he would quit. 12 years into his career, Quentin is the logistics director for a regional medical supply company. He builds the chains that get insulin to hospitals when roads are flooded. He has coordinated emergency distribution across the Florida coast during 2 separate hurricane seasons, moving surgical kits and breathing equipment to facilities where the phones were down and the docks were underwater. He does not panic. He problem solves. On Saturday mornings, he coaches youth football. He shows up with a clipboard and a cooler of water, and the same belief he has held since he was 17 years old, that every kid on that field deserves an adult who shows up without an agenda. He is 41 years old. He has no criminal record. He pays his taxes. He owns his home. And then there is Hadley. She came through the foster system at 4 years old, carrying a stuffed elephant and a silence that adults kept describing in paperwork as behavioral. Quentin read the file and saw something different. But he saw a kid who had learned that making noise did not always bring the right kind of attention. He took that seriously. The elephant got lost during a move. Hadley cried for 2 days straight. The quiet kind, The kind that is worse because it means a child has already learned that loud crying does not help. Quentin drove to 4 stores before he found the right replacement. Gray, floppy-eared, the exact weight of something a child can sleep on. She stopped crying, and she started calling him Dad when she was 5. She did not ask permission. She just did it one morning over cereal, the way children do when a decision has already been made inside them and the words are just catching up. The adoption was finalized 11 months before the parking lot. The paperwork took longer than it should have. It always does. But Quentin Pierce is a man who builds supply chains across flooded coastlines. He does not stop because of paperwork. On the afternoon of this particular Tuesday, they have just come from a routine dental appointment. Hadley was promised a fruit snack and a sticker if she did not complain about the waiting room. She did not complain. She colored on a paper they gave her at the front desk and asked the hygienist 3 questions about the little mirror on the stick. She is 7 years old and she is fine. They stop at the CVS for a prescription. The sky is heavy, and the air has that pressed-down feeling that comes before a storm breaks open. Hadley spots the dandelion in the crack of the pavement and squats to look at it like it is the most interesting thing in the world. 4:17 p.m. Quentin Pierce has navigated crisis rooms and flooded supply routes and the slow machinery of the family court system. He is not prepared for what is about to happen in this parking lot on an ordinary Tuesday, and nobody who has done everything right is ever prepared for that. He has spent his entire life building things that hold. In 4 minutes, a single phone call is going to test whether any of it matters. The officer who responds to that call has been on the Marietta Police Department for 9 years. 9 years! Long enough that no one is calling this a rookie mistake. In those 9 years, he has collected 6 civilian complaints. 2 of them involve allegations of excessive force. One resulted in a formal reprimand, not for force, for verbal conduct during a stop. The other excessive force complaint was dismissed at intake before investigation. The file closes. No one follows up. There is a memo, written by a direct supervisor 2 years before the CVS incident. It flags the officer's escalation pattern during pedestrian and vehicle stops. It recommends additional training on de-escalation protocol. It uses the phrase escalation tone twice in 4 paragraphs. And the training is never completed. 6 complaints in 9 years is not bad luck. It is a documented pattern that a department looked at, wrote a memo about, and then filed away. He is not a man who woke up that Tuesday morning planning to hurt someone. That is the point. He did not plan anything. He acted on assumption the way people act on habit, automatically, without friction, because nothing in 9 years of wearing that badge ever made the habit expensive enough to break. The system did not produce a bad officer in isolation. The system produced a predictable outcome from a pattern it chose not to address. At 4:21 p.m., a call comes in to dispatch. An anonymous caller reports seeing a black man with a young white girl in the CVS parking lot. The caller says the girl looks uncomfortable. The caller does not give her name. The caller does not describe a crime. She describes something she finds unusual, which is to say, and something she finds wrong, which is to say, something that a grown man's adoption paperwork, school enrollment records, and family court finalization have already legally answered. Dispatch takes the call, and in the radio transmission that will later be pulled into a federal lawsuit and read aloud in a courtroom, the dispatcher uses a phrase to categorize the situation, a specific cluster of words that an expert witness will later describe, on the stand, as racially coded dispatch language. Want a phrase that tells 2 officers what kind of encounter to expect before they have laid eyes on a single person. That phrase travels through a radio frequency and lands in the patrol car before the officers ever pull into the lot. They are already certain by the time they arrive. That certainty, not the complaint, not the call, not even the force itself, is the thing that will cost the department $2.8 million. Certainty without confirmation is not policing, and it is assumption wearing a badge. The patrol car turns into the CVS lot at 4:22 p.m. The officers see a black man standing near a dark blue sedan with a white child beside him. They do not see a father and his daughter. They see exactly what the phone call told them to see, and that difference between what is standing in front of them and what they have already decided is the difference that will define everything that follows. He's the officer with 6 complaints and an unfinished de-escalation training record steps out of the car. He does not ask a question first. He never asks a question first. And the dispatcher had already answered everything for him before he opened his door. 4:23 p.m. Tuesday, Marietta, Georgia. The CVS sits on a 4-lane commercial strip between a nail salon and a sandwich shop. The parking lot has 11 marked spaces and a handicap lane running along the storefront. But the receipt inside Quentin's jacket pocket is time-stamped 4:11 p.m. His prescription bag is sealed. His phone is in his left hand. His daughter is beside him. There are 11 people in or around that parking lot when the patrol car pulls in. 11 witnesses. A woman loading grocery bags into a silver SUV, 2 spaces from the entrance. 2 teenagers sitting on the curb sharing wireless earbuds. An older man with a leashed dog standing near the handicap ramp. A mother with a stroller near the pharmacy drive-thru. A delivery driver stopped at the edge of the lot, checking a clipboard. 3 more people at varying distances. Near cars, near the entrance, mid-crossing. 11 people who did not ask to become witnesses to anything today. The sky is fully bruised now. Thunder moves in waves close enough that the gaps between strikes feel personal. The air smells like rain that has already decided it is coming, whether the afternoon is ready or not. Hadley has just looked up from the dandelion. She has decided the crack in the pavement is less interesting than the sky, which has gone a color she has never seen before. Green-gray, like something pressed under glass. She tugs her father's hand. He looks down at her. He is about to say something. Something ordinary. Something Tuesday afternoon. The kind of sentence that nobody remembers because nothing follows it. The patrol car parks diagonally across 2 handicap spaces. Not urgency. To not emergency position. Diagonal. Careless. The kind of parking that says I am not thinking about what I am blocking because I do not need to think about that. The woman loading her grocery bags stops loading. The 2 teenagers pull out 1 earbud each. Quentin watches the car. He keeps his posture open, his hands visible. The prescription bag is in his right hand, clear plastic, label facing out. And he is doing all the things a person learns to do when they have spent a lifetime being read before they speak. He is doing everything right. Hadley laughs at something. The sky, maybe. Or the way the wind has just picked up her hair. And the sound of it hits the parking lot 1 full second before the officer's door swings open. It is the last easy sound in the next 11 minutes. The officer steps out. And he does not look at the prescription bag, or the time-stamped receipt, or the child in the pink jacket, who is still smiling at the sky. He looks at Quentin Pierce, and his first words are not a question. "Sir, do not move." The words land flat. No greeting, no approach. Just authority announced from 12 feet away, before the officer's partner has even finished stepping out of the car. Quentin Pierce does not move. He is very still. The kind of still that is not passive. It is controlled. And the difference matters, though the officer does not appear to notice it. "Can I help you with something?" Quentin says. The voice he uses is the same voice he uses when a shipment is delayed and a hospital in Tampa is waiting on insulin. Measured. Level. Every syllable placed down carefully. "We received a call about a possible child abduction. I need you to step away from the girl right now." Hadley's hand tightens in his. The word abduction hits the air between them and stays there. Quentin takes 1 breath. 1. "This is my daughter," he says. "Her name is Hadley Pierce. My name is Quentin Pierce. I am her father. I have identification. I have documentation from our dentist appointment 2 hours ago. Her last name is the same as mine." "Step away from the girl, sir." "I just told you I am her father." "I heard what you said. Step away." Something passes across Quentin's face. Brief. The recognition of a situation that has rules he did not write. "Son, Daddy." Hadley's voice is small. Not crying yet. Just checking. "I'm right here," he tells her. Then, to the officer, "She is 7 years old. She is starting to get scared. Can you tell me what probable cause you have to separate me from my child?" The officer does not answer the question. He takes 3 steps forward. "I need to see identification. I will show you my ID right now." I am reaching into my jacket pocket. Slowly. My left hand stays visible. He reaches. He produces the license. And he holds it out flat in his palm, label forward, The way a person holds something when they want absolutely no ambiguity about what is in their hand. The officer takes the license. He looks at it. He looks at Hadley. He looks back at the license. He hands it back. She doesn't match you. 3 words. Flat. Said with the certainty of a man reading a weather report. She doesn't match you. The woman loading groceries 2 spaces over stops completely. Her trunk is still open. And her hand is on a paper bag, and she has not moved since that sentence left the officer's mouth. One of the teenagers has a phone out. For the record, Quentin says, and his voice has not changed in pitch or speed, which is its own kind of extraordinary thing to witness. I have presented valid government-issued identification. My daughter's full name is Hadley Imani Pierce. She is enrolled at Burney Elementary School in Cobb County under that name. She has a pediatrician, a therapist, and a family court case number, all under that name. Our adoption was finalized 11 months ago through the Georgia court system. I am her father, under the full authority of state law. The officer looks at him for 2 full seconds. Turn around. I'm sorry. Turn around, sir. I have committed no crime. There is no lawful basis to detain me. I am standing in a public parking lot with my daughter, and I have just provided you with identification. Turn around. And now, the second officer has moved. He is on Quentin's left. The arrangement is practiced. 1 in front, 1 to the side. The geometry that reduces a person's options to 0 without saying so out loud. Hey! The grocery woman's voice cuts across the lot. He showed you his ID. What are you doing? Ma'am, stand back. He showed you his ID. Hadley begins to cry. Quietly. The kind that means a child is trying not to, because she understands at some deep level that the adults around her are already beyond the point of easy rescue, and crying will make something worse. Dad. Her voice is barely a breath. I am right here, Quentin says. I am right. The first officer grabs his arm. It happens in under 3 seconds. The hand on the jacket sleeve. The spin. Quentin's chest against the hood of his own car. His right arm goes back easy because it has to. His left arm goes back at an angle that arms do not go. The sound is small. That is the awful part. Not dramatic. Small, contained, private. The sound a body makes when something inside it has given way. And then Quentin makes a sound that is not a word, because there is no word available to him right now. There is only the sudden, complete fact of pain. His shoulder has dislocated. Hadley screams. The teddy bear hits the wet pavement. Thunder cracks directly overhead, immediate and physical, on the kind that compresses the air in your chest. And for 1 second, it swallows every other sound in the lot. When it clears, Hadley is still screaming. Quentin is face down on his own car hood, hands cuffed behind him, left shoulder at an angle it was not built to hold. 11 people are watching. 3 phones are recording. The bear is in a puddle. No one is picking it up. The second officer leans toward the first. He speaks low. The kind of low that is meant to stay between 2 people. And he does not know that his microphone is still running. What he says in that moment, 2 words, quiet, thrown away like they cost nothing, will be played through a courtroom speaker in front of 12 jurors who will hear it twice without being asked. And when it plays, not one person in that room will need it explained. If this story stopped you, subscribe right now. Hit the bell. Chapter 6 is where the body cam becomes the most important recording in this entire case. You do not want to miss what comes next. What the second officer said in that parking lot, the 2 words he threw away like they cost him nothing, is about to cost this department everything. The microphone catches everything. That is the part the department will never be able to explain away. Not in a press release, not in a legal brief, not in any carefully worded statement drafted by any communications team on Earth. But the second officer's body cam is still running when he leans toward his partner and delivers 2 words in a voice that was meant to stay between them. Another hero, Dad. Casual. Dismissive. The tone of a man who has already closed the book on a situation he has not yet bothered to read. The microphone does not care what tone he intended. It records the frequency, the timing, and the exact words. And it records them at 14 seconds past the moment the handcuffs click around Quentin Pierce's wrists. That recording will travel from a CVS parking lot in Marietta, Georgia, into a federal courtroom, where it will be played through speakers in front of 12 jurors who will listen to it twice without being asked. But right now, in this parking lot, it's with rain beginning to fall and Hadley still crying, and Quentin's shoulder at an angle it was not designed to hold. None of that has happened yet. Quentin asks for medical attention twice during transport. Both requests are written into the arrest report as subject complaining of discomfort. Discomfort. The hospital imaging tells the real story. A full shoulder dislocation, soft tissue damage. The 11 days of restricted movement for a man whose job requires him to manage logistics across multiple time zones. Weeks of physical therapy. A left arm that will not go above his shoulder for nearly 2 weeks. Hadley is taken to a family services office. She sits there for 2 hours. She does not speak. She holds her bear, the one the grocery woman retrieved from the puddle, still damp from the rain, and she does not say one word for 120 minutes. She is 7 years old. No supervisor reviews the body cam footage that night. No internal flag is raised. The system, at this stage, is still operating the way systems operate when they believe the story belongs to them. It does not belong to them. It belongs to 3 phone cameras, 1 department body cam, and a dispatch transcript that will survive every legal attempt to keep it out of discovery. A logistics director who has moved medical supplies through flooded coastlines has just learned something that no career achievement prepared him for. In America, doing everything right is not always enough. But documentation, precise, time-stamped, recorded, preserved, is what moves mountains when character alone cannot. What saved Quentin Pierce was not strength. It was not connections. It was not 11 witnesses who saw everything. And it was the fact that the officer's own equipment recorded the truth. And 31 hours later, that truth was about to meet the internet. 3 clips hit the internet within 31 hours of the arrest. 3 different phones, 3 different angles, same parking lot, same rain, same little girl screaming over a bear in a puddle while her father's face is pressed against the hood of his own car. The internet does not need context explained. Say 3.2 million views in 48 hours. Not because people are searching for something to be angry about, because the footage is completely clear. There is no competing frame. There is a man who produced identification and was handcuffed anyway. There is a child who called for her father and got no answer. There is a bear in a puddle. People share it because they cannot believe it. People share it because they believe it entirely. Both things are true at the same time. And that tension is exactly what sends a video past 3 million views before the department has drafted its first statement. The department releases that statement on day 2. It reads, "We are reviewing the incident in accordance with departmental policy and procedure." Reviewing. That word lands on social media like a lit match on dry paper. By day 3, national media is carrying the story. A civil rights organization out of Atlanta has already made contact with Quentin's family. Legal teams are circling. Community groups organize outside the precinct on a Wednesday morning in 32-degree weather, and they do not leave until after dark. The department releases a second statement on day 4. It includes the phrase, "Context matters." On day 5, the body cam audio leaks. Another hero dad. Those 2 words play on television sets in living rooms across 30 states. They play on a loop in courthouse break rooms. They play on the phones of people who forward them to their parents, their co-workers, their city council representatives. Context, the department's statement had said. The audio provides exactly that. The lawsuit is filed 18 days after the arrest. The plaintiff is Quentin Damon Pierce. The claims are excessive force, unlawful detention, and civil rights violations under federal law. The suit names the officer, the department, and the city. It also names the failure to supervise as a contributing cause, because a man with 6 complaints and an unfinished de-escalation training does not walk into a parking lot and make that decision in a vacuum. He walks in carrying every uncorrected choice the institution made on his behalf. In discovery, the dispatch transcript surfaces, and the specific language used to categorize the anonymous call is pulled apart by an expert witness who has spent 20 years studying racial bias in law enforcement communication. She identifies the terminology. She traces its effect. She connects the language of the dispatch to the behavior at the scene with the kind of precision that comes from watching a pattern repeat itself for 2 decades and finally having a courtroom willing to hear it named. The anonymous caller is never identified. On the call itself, placed because a black man was holding a white child's hand in a public parking lot, is never investigated as a false report. No charge is filed, no consequence follows. Quentin gives one interview before the trial. A journalist asks him how he managed to stay calm during the arrest. He looks at her for a moment before he answers. "I had a 7-year-old watching me," he says. "I didn't have the option to be anything else." He pauses. "And I knew what I knew. I knew who I was. I knew who she was. I knew what the receipt said, and what the adoption papers said, and what the law said. The only thing I didn't know was whether any of that was going to matter." He stops there. He does not finish the sentence. Everyone watching already knows how it ends. 9 hours. That is how long the jury is going to deliberate. 9 hours to decide how much a father's dislocated shoulder is worth. 9 hours to decide how much a little girl's 2 hours of silence in a family services office is worth. 9 hours to decide whether the words "another hero dad," captured on a microphone that was never supposed to hear them, represent an institution's character or just one careless moment. The jury does not need longer than 9 hours. If this story is hitting home, share it right now with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The courtroom is the kind of quiet that only exists when a room full of people is trying very hard not to make a sound. Expert testimony opens the case for the plaintiff. A retired law enforcement official with 32 years of field experience and 12 years as a use-of-force instructor takes the stand and explains, in plain language that requires no interpretation, that there was no probable cause for the stop. That an anonymous phone call describing a man and a child in a parking lot does not establish reasonable suspicion under any standard in American law. That the officer's decision to initiate physical contact after receiving valid identification and a verbal statement of parentage represents a departure from established protocols so significant it cannot be called a judgment call. He uses the phrase textbook excessive force. He says it once. He does not repeat it. He does not need to. So the Bodycam audio is played. Another hero dad. The courtroom does not react visibly. 12 jurors sit with the controlled expressions of people who have been instructed to keep their faces neutral. But something passes through the room when those 2 words come through the speakers. Something that does not require a reaction to be felt. The officer takes the stand. He does not look at the plaintiff's table. He looks at the middle distance behind the jury box. The way a person looks when they are trying to appear composed, and the effort is taking everything they have. He describes the arrest as standard procedure, given the information received from dispatch. The plaintiff's attorney, a 44-year-old civil rights litigator named Dara Okafor, who has tried 23 cases involving law enforcement misconduct and lost 4, approaches the stand with a single sheet of paper. She asks the officer to define the phrase, "she doesn't match you." He says it referred to a description discrepancy between the caller's report and the individuals present. She asks him which specific description discrepancy justified the physical force that resulted in a dislocated shoulder. He pauses. She waits. He says he was acting on the totality of circumstances. She asks him to identify which circumstance required him to wrench a man's arm behind his back at an angle that caused soft tissue damage and full joint displacement. He cannot answer, and the dispatch transcript is read aloud. Every word. The racially coded categorization language sits in the air of that courtroom the way things sit when everyone in the room is fully aware of them, and no one needs to point to make them visible. Quentin Pierce sits at the plaintiff's table. He does not celebrate each exchange. He watches, still, measured. The same man he was in that parking lot, in every room, in every year, in every situation that required him to be the calmest person present when calm was the hardest thing to be. Dara Okafor rests the plaintiff's case on a Thursday afternoon. The jury deliberates from Friday morning through Saturday midday. 9 hours. They file back in at 12:47 p.m. on a Saturday. The 4-person stands. Excessive force. Unlawful detention. Civil rights violations sustained. $2.8 million awarded to the plaintiff. The officer is terminated within 60 days of the verdict. Department leadership restructures within a year. New use of force policy. New dispatch protocol review. A mandatory completion requirement for de-escalation training that cannot be filed in a memo, and left alone. In the courtroom, when the foreperson finishes reading, Quentin Pierce closes his eyes. 3 seconds. He opens them. He reaches across the table and squeezes Dara Okafor's hand once. Outside, in the courthouse parking lot, the woman who retrieved Hadley's teddy bear from a CVS puddle on a Tuesday afternoon is standing with her phone pressed to her ear. When the call connects, she says 2 words before she starts crying. He won. But here is what the verdict does not fix. Here is the part that never makes the headline. The check clears. The headline runs. The department releases a statement acknowledging the verdict and committing to reform. Civil rights organizations cite the case in policy briefs. Our law professors add it to syllabi. The name Quentin Pierce appears in 4 separate congressional testimonies over the following 18 months. None of that is what he thinks about on a Tuesday night when he cannot sleep. He thinks about 11 days when his left arm would not go above his shoulder. He thinks about the physical therapy appointments he scheduled around conference calls because the company needed him and he needed the distraction. He thinks about the nightmares, the specific, repeating kind that do not care what a jury decided. That replay 11 minutes in a CVS parking lot with the kind of detail that a sleeping brain adds to make sure nothing important gets forgotten. He does not describe the nightmares in interviews. He describes them in a therapist's office, on Tuesday evenings, in a room with no cameras. Hadley is in weekly sessions for 8 months. She makes progress. Then she goes quiet for 2 weeks after a fire truck runs a red light near her school and the siren is close enough to rattle the classroom windows. Then she makes progress again. Then she pulls back slightly when a police car follows their vehicle for 3 blocks on a Sunday afternoon, and Quentin watches her in the rearview mirror go very still in her booster seat. She is 8 years old by the time the verdict comes in. She is not entirely sure what a verdict means. She knows her dad went to a big room with a lot of people and something was decided. She knows he cried in the car on the way home, just briefly, stopped at a red light when he thought she was asleep. She was not asleep. She reaches over and puts her hand on top of his. She does not say anything. She leaves her hand there. That is the moment Quentin Pierce will describe 2 years later, when a journalist asks what healing has felt like. Not the verdict, not the check, not the restructuring press release, a small hand on top of his at a red light. The adoption paperwork is questioned publicly in the weeks following the viral footage. Strangers run searches on the family. Quentin's employer receives 2 anonymous calls suggesting the adoption was irregular. Tabloid website publishes a piece implying the family services file contained concerns. The story is retracted 4 days later after the family's attorney sends a single letter. But the comments stay up. Yet the screenshots circulate. The damage of a retracted story is never as clean as the story itself. The therapy bills run for 14 months. The physical therapy for 9. The nightmares slow down around month 6 and mostly stop by month 10. Mostly. He still tightens his hands on the wheel sometimes when a light bar appears in the rearview mirror. Not every time, but sometimes the body holds on to what the mind has decided to release. Justice was loud in that courthouse on a Saturday afternoon. Healing is quiet. It happens in the Tuesday evenings and the Sunday drives and the school mornings where Hadley eats her cereal without looking at the window when a siren passes 2 blocks away. It happens without applause in rooms where no camera is running. Quentin Pierce won. He won because he had documentation. He had witnesses. He had 3 phone cameras and a Bodycam that kept running. And he had a civil rights attorney who knew exactly where to press. He had every advantage a person can have in a situation no person should ever face. So the question is not what happened to Quentin Pierce. The question is what happens to the person who has none of those things. Here is what is true about that parking lot in Marietta, Georgia, on that Tuesday afternoon. A man had legal identification, a time-stamped receipt, a prescription bag with his name on the label, 11 witnesses, or an adoption finalized in state family court 11 months prior. His daughter beside him in broad daylight, in a public parking lot, doing nothing that any law on any book in any jurisdiction describes as a crime. And it still happened. So sit with that. Not the emotion of it, the logic of it. If it can happen to a documented legal guardian, in daylight, surrounded by witnesses, and with every piece of paper in order, what happens to the 17-year-old walking home from a friend's house at 9 p.m. with nothing but his hands in his pockets? What happens to the single mother who does not know that Section 1983 is a legal pathway? Who does not have a Dara Okafor on speed dial? Who does not have 3 phone cameras and a viral clip, and 3.2 million people suddenly paying attention? What happens to the man who was not calm? Who was scared? Who raised his voice because his shoulder was being pulled apart and his daughter was screaming? What happens to the person without resources, without documentation, without a story compelling enough to reach the people who could help? The system moved in Quentin Pierce's case because evidence forced it. Not good faith, not internal review, not a supervisor who saw the footage that night and made a call. Evidence. On 3 phone cameras and a microphone and a dispatch transcript that survived the discovery process. That is the indictment inside the verdict. The system does not self-correct. It corrects when correction cannot be avoided, when the footage is too clear to dispute, when the jury has heard the audio twice, when the financial number is large enough to reach the conversations behind closed doors in city budget meetings. $2.8 million is a number that changes policy, and an internal memo does not. Reform is not a statement. It is a mechanism. It is complaint thresholds that trigger mandatory review after 2 documented incidents, not 6. It is independent oversight boards with binding authority, not advisory panels that issue recommendations no department is required to follow. It is bodycam policies that treat footage as public record from the moment it is captured, not departmental property managed at the department's discretion. And it is dispatch protocol training that addresses the language used to categorize calls, not just the behavior of officers after they arrive. It is financial accountability structures that make the full cost of institutional patterns visible to the people who have the power to end them. It is accountability that does not require a viral video to activate. Quentin Pierce built a career on systems that function. He moved insulin across flooded coastlines. He coordinated supply chains in crisis. And he understood that when a system has a failure point and you do not fix it, eventually that failure point produces a catastrophe and someone gets hurt. He understood that before the parking lot. He understands it differently now. He still coaches youth football on Saturday mornings. He still shows up with the clipboard and the water cooler in the belief that every kid on that field deserves an adult who arrives without an agenda. Hadley still has the bear. The left ear has been stitched a 3rd time. She calls him Dad. She has never called him anything else. She is not afraid of every siren anymore. She is still working on some of them. So is he. Authority without accountability collapses under evidence, and assumptions are never proof. That is the truth a CVS parking lot proved on a Tuesday afternoon. Not because the system wanted to prove it, because 3 phones kept recording, because a microphone kept running, because a man stayed calm long enough for the evidence to speak, and because a little girl in a pink puffer jacket held a gray teddy bear and waited for her father to come back to her. He came back. Some fathers don't. That is why this story does not end in the courthouse. That is why it ends here, with you right now, deciding what you do with it. If this story reached you, share it with one person who needs to hear it today. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your voice is part of the accountability. Subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell. Every week we bring you stories that challenge, inspire, and refuse to be forgotten.